Welcome to 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. Our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them by being authentic about their journey. Here's your host, Jacolby Gilliam.
Yo, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jacolby Gilliam. This episode, we have Kathleen Gates, former pro volleyball player, former Georgia Bulldog, and now working for Athlete Abroad Management, an agency helping volleyball players. And Kathleen's journey is one about being driven, and I was really hyped at hearing her story because it made me think I need to work harder. So I don't want to hold it up. So let's get to it. Great journey, great story, and great person. So let's get to it. So Kathleen, the question that everyone that comes on is, when you're younger as an athlete, what was your big dream or goal you want to achieve?
When I was younger, I had the opportunity to meet the New Zealand Olympic swim team when I was 5. And so I remember thinking I really wanted to be an Olympic swimming champion. So that was kind of the goal from when I was 4 until 8 or so. And then from that changed. And then I found the sport of volleyball. And then that transformed into really wanting to just be really good at volleyball and to enjoy it and eventually get a scholarship to go to school. But I remember thinking when I was 5, in the pool and just being fascinated by these New Zealand swimmers and their accents, their style, their tattoos, their green hair, their piercings, and she's what is this? And then being able to watch them on the TV, and then eventually I went to a swim camp and got to meet Sue Walsh, who is an incredible athlete at the University of North Carolina, and she was an Olympian and NCAA champion, and just incredible person, and spent a lot of time with the kids. So I feel just seeing those Olympic champions, that was the dream, and then it transformed into wanting to go and play college sports after I found out about volleyball. So yeah.
So when you saw them and thought you kind of had that dream, was it more about being able to stand out that kind of made you decide about that dream, or was it more about what kind of made you think I want to do that?
I think it's just the adventure of it, the journey of it, being able to be open to different opportunities, because they're from New Zealand, or they were from smaller towns, and they get to come to the US, and then they were competing. So I think, and then meeting just a very wide variety of characters. And I think too, just in my sports career, I think about how I was very fortunate that my teammates have and continue to come from very different backgrounds and upbringing and sometimes countries than me. So just the richness of that experience, where I feel it's hard to find other types of activities or I feel maybe in dance a little bit, or in the arts, you can probably find that. But then in arts and sports, I feel it's hard to find that kind of mixture of people and backgrounds and all working toward the same goal, which is really, really special.
Awesome. So when you have this dream, you want to be, either Olympian, the next big thing, athlete, maybe have green hair. Well, what was your goal, or what were your thoughts on how you're gonna kind of make that happen?
I think for me, just working hard, because I'm not the biggest person, I'm not the most athletic person ever, but I think that from a very young age, I just saw that, and my parents, and especially my grandfather, I was really close to him. He had joined the military when he was 14 for World War II, and then did a 25-year military career, and he actually played baseball. And thinking back into the late 40s and 50s, he was playing in the Marine League, and got to he played against people like Babe Ruth, because back then you think they didn't really have the MLB, and he has programs from playing against the Yankees, because they would play against the Marine Corps sometimes. And then he was close to Nagasaki a few months after the war, and one of his humanitarian things with the military was teaching baseball with the kids. And so I have pictures of him with a bat and tossing the ball with the kids. And so then from that to also seeing him, he was a farmer and working, and when he came back and finished his military career, he was a farmer and would wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go with him to go run the errands. I just saw you have to work hard to achieve things, and then just maybe it's cliche, but it's true that talent can never replace hard work, if you can always outwork someone.
I love that. So you kind of had it in an early age, all right, if I want to get my dream, I got to outwork someone, right?
Yep.
So when you said you had to outwork somebody, like how did
Mm-hmm.
you go about it in volleyball? Like, cause like
Mm-hmm.
we like in like a like club team too, or you kind of just like a late
Mm-hmm.
starter, or how do you go about that?
I was really fortunate that I was in a small town. And so it was cool is that we were able to kind of try everything. And my mom was really adamant about pushing us into everything, like at least doing one thing, like at least try it once, do the full season, do the full class, or the full whatever it is. So I tried dance, hated it, but I did it for one thing. Love swimming because it's just like a fun like atmosphere too. It's only a summer league, and then it's a fun way to pass the summer. Loved basketball too. So played basketball, played soccer, played tennis. And then I had a really good friend that we were always together playing all these different sports on the same team. And she's the one that invited me to go come with her and play volleyball. And at the same time, we had someone in our hometown that was an incredible athlete and human. She just was starting to become state champion, MVP, Gatorade Player of the Year. And then they would also have camps in the summer for the kids. And so I remember being part of those camps, watching her play in the fall, and then that winter trying out for volleyball and being very frustrated because it's not the most easy sport to pick up. I was much better at basketball and swimming just because I had been playing this for a lot longer and came a little more naturally. And so I just remember a really like for me like a big milestone was like getting an overhand serve when you're 8 years old. Like you like want to be able to do that, but it takes so much effort. And like I remember one of our vacations we went to go skiing, but instead I like insisted with my dad that we would not leave the racquetball court until I finished like until I finally felt like I was like confident enough to serve overhand. And so we spent a whole week like an hour or two each day of me trying to either hit it in like the racquetball court or going out into the basketball court and trying to serve a volleyball overhand. And I think that's part of my personality. Like when I'm someone that has a lot of ideas and a little bit all over the place sometimes, but then when I actually find out like really focus in on what is really important, then I go all in and I just say really like, get laser focused on it.
Dedication
So
right
I
there.
think that was a good one. Yeah, so that was like the turning point. And then from that, I think just like a series of events really helped. Like we moved when I was in seventh grade and went from like a small town in Hendersonville to a much bigger city of Wilmington, which is like comparatively not that big, but it's bigger than what I was used to. I remember I was like fascinated that you could walk to people's houses because I used to live in the mountains and you would have to like drive everywhere. Like, what is this? And then like fascinated by the bus. I'm like, you tell me if I come at this time, every single time, the bus is gonna take me to school and it's like small things like that. I think it came with more opportunities, I think, for playing sports with different caliber athletes. And then my dad found a tryout for the Carolina region. So like in volleyball, each it depends by state, but at that time it was only USAV volleyball, and so clubs would be part of like in a region, and then you compete in those regional tournaments, and then there'd be like their big qualifier tournaments for the national one. And so then they create a program called like the High Performance Pipeline, and so then they started doing camps for the regions, also camps for the whole U.S. based on your age group. And so I tried out. The next day I got asked to go to another tryout, and I made the team for my age group. And that's I think that was the biggest like big leap because even though I was in a bigger town, it wasn't as developed in volleyball as other cities. And so I think having opportunity at I think I was 13 or 14 to be able to compete with the best girls of my age group in North Carolina um, was huge. And from there, I was able to go and do some of the USA camps. I eventually made the decision later on to play for a club that was 3 hours away from Wilmington. And so we did it was like 3 hours one way on the weekends to go train with this team. And then that friend from that I had from Hendersonville, she also is very still into volleyball. So we both made the decision, okay, she'll drive 3 hours from Hendersonville. I'll drive 3 hours from Wilmington. We'll meet in the middle, which Greensboro. We'll play on this club team. And that's like one for me, that's still one of the most incredible experiences because we were 10, 12 girls all driving in from all over and sacrificing a lot to compete together. And we did incredible things that most people didn't think we were capable of. And then all 10 of us got scholarships to go play. We're all 4-year starters. We all are either still playing or giving back in some way to the sport. And then we had incredible coaches that really pushed us. So it's like really like, so I had a couple of steps that helped me. The things just kept on falling into place to push me towards playing volleyball at a high level.
It's so much impacted because like it's very rare that someone, like athlete like that young, right, is already that dedicated, to say,
Mm-hmm.
I got this dream, I got this goal, I'm going to get there, just that milestone. So then you kind of put that all kind of stream back to your grandpa a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Him and just my family in general. I have a sister and she's only 2 years younger than me, and so she was like always my pepper partner, my forever like rebounder for basketball, my forever like help get me up in the morning. We'd have to go to early swim practice, and so she was someone that it still is like my biggest cheerleader and biggest supporter. And then my parents too, because they're the ones that also said, okay, if you really want this to happen, we'll be behind you 100%, but you still need to do your studies, you still need to get good grades, you still need to take care of everything. But they also made huge sacrifices financially and time wise, and also too really fortunate with it, they were in a position to be able to make those kind of sacrifices for me as well, because they're really much my family. I have a lot to be grateful for, and they've always been my biggest supporters and been there for everything. So yeah, between my grandfather and my sister, and she went on to play too in college and had an awesome career. She was player of the year her senior year. She was captain for a lot of her career, and then has a very good business career now too. So I'm very proud of her. And the same thing for my parents, is making to almost every match, every weekend, every tournament. So
That's
definitely a family affair.
That's a squad right there.
Yep. The Gates family rolls deep. Yep.
Great family run deep. Make that a shirt right there. Make a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to the point where you're kind of making a name for yourself, and and kind of youth, coming up in the volleyball world. How did you kind of approach, once you started getting those college letters?
Mm-hmm. What's funny is that I didn't play for that club in Greensboro until my junior year, and it's not wasn't people weren't signing as early as they are right now, but people were still signing. So I didn't really up until that point, I had only played like in the regional tournaments, in the summer league, and then maybe one big qualifier. And I'd never been to nationals. I'd never been to more than one qualifier. So that's where you get the exposure, because back then there wasn't YouTube. There wasn't, you had to like, the way to get exposure was really for the coaches to see you play live, unlike today where you can just film from your phone and send in the video. So it's hard to think back to like, what was it, 2004, 2005, when there wasn't YouTube. And like the dads there like filming the camera and having like to send it. Hopefully they'll watch all these videotapes coming in and everything, or the CDs coming in. So you really, the biggest way was to be able to get exposure at these big tournaments. So thankfully, what I did was I also too, I knew I wanted to help people, and I was like science, and so okay, maybe I want to be a physician's assistant. So what I did, because school for me was also very important. So I was not thinking about it too. I'm like, why did I do this? But anyway, so I made like a list of like, I started looking at graduate schools for PA to then have all the requirements, and then try to look at what would be the best programs or degrees for me to become a PA. So that's how I kind of narrowed down the search. I also did it based on I wanted my parents to be able to come, and my sister to come and watch me play. But I also wanted to be a little bit far away to have like a new experience as well at college. And so through that, I narrowed it down. But then I think the biggest thing was with playing for that club team. I was and then started to go on visits. And my dream school was Georgia, because it reminded me a lot of UNC Chapel Hill, where both my parents went. That's where they met. My dad played baseball there. And so there was a coaching change during that fall, so I didn't think it was going to happen. And then the coach came and saw me play in February, and then I was asked to actually walk on. At that point, I wasn't very well known. I hadn't made a name for myself. And then shortly thereafter, I tried out for the youth national team, and I made the training team that summer. So even though I was like doubting myself quite a bit, because I was like, okay, I made the youth national team, looking at all the other girls and saying, okay, they have these full scholarships. Why did I agree to walk on? Again, I'm asking my parents for a huge sacrifice to pay like $45,000 for 1 year of school, knowing that I would get a scholarship after that. And so my whole senior year, I was really going back and forth. Like, should I go? Should I try something else? Like, I know I had the level to play at a more volleyball focused school, because at that time, and they're very middle, lower of the SEC. We pretty much stayed that way my whole career. But anyway, but something about that campus and that feeling and wanting to be a Georgia Bulldog were really like, was just like my heart was telling me it. And then as it would turn out, when I got to campus in July, the director of ops, met me in the parking lot to tell me that someone had medicaled out, and so I had a scholarship, and so my whole 4 years would be paid for. I just remember like just like having this huge, like, first of course I cried, and then it was like huge sense of relief, and also to just say for my parents that all your sacrifices and everything was worth it. Like, you don't, like, it's gonna be paid in full. You don't have to worry about paying for education for me. I'll be okay. And then, so yeah, that was like the big turning point that summer, was being able to, because I was even doubting the week before I moved to think like, should I really go to Athens? Like a whole, like, even summer school before, I had to pay for this and that, and then everything worked out. And then I thought I was in a red shirt. And then I thought I was going to redshirt, and then I ended up starting because of other events too. So then I was a starter for 4 years. But yeah, it was a wild ride to get there.
That is wild. Like the thought of, walking in the parking lot and you get stopped. Hey, you're on a full ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you basically kind of went there, I guess, in a sense, on faith and kind of believing that you're going to get there and you're going to earn a scholarship.
Yep, exactly. And saying more likely we want you, but we see that we're rebuilding a program, and it makes more sense to put money towards hitters and that kind of thing, which you kind of see that too sometimes in pro, focusing more on people that score points to the bigger salaries, and setters and middles get a little bit less. But yeah, that was the thing. And the coach knew that I really loved that university and that feeling, and just Athens and the whole package, and great academics, great student life, and that as well. So it would be hard for me to walk away from that, and to the distance, being able for my parents to come for the weekend, and then playing against other big schools would be, it fit all the requirements at that time. So yeah.
That's a wild story right there. Like, I hope it's what I like. I mean, it's almost like storybook right there, when the journey just starting, and then you said you were a starter for 4 years. So
yeah.
You went from being small town, wanting to be maybe a swimmer, to chasing this volleyball dream, saying I'm going to outwork anybody that comes in my way, to being a 4-year starter. What was that like? Like, was it like a hard transition from high school to college?
It was a lot. But I'm grateful because of my junior coaches. I remember going back to working hard. I had one of my coaches for the high performance Carolina region. Another quote that he gave us is that when you're not working, somewhere someone else is, and when you two meet, she will win. That's something that's been like a mantra for me for when I was playing, just knowing that there's going to be a certain point where, like, you keep working, and there's going to be around other athletes that have worked that much too. So it's really just going to come down to that. And so I think that helped carry me, because I needed to work more, because I was like, up until my junior year, I hadn't really played with big name players, the size of the players, the speed of the game. And then too, I thought that I was going to be a red shirt. And so then to go walking on to thinking, okay, I'm going to arrive, be a walk-on red shirt, and just learn from the setter before me, to then being like, actually, no, you're it. You're going to be starting a week after I get there, be like, okay. And then having learned very quickly about my teammates, and there's a lot of growing pains, and leadership it can be a very lonely endeavor sometimes. And also having to figure out who I am as a person, because that's kind of the point in college, because figuring out who you are and growing. So yeah, a lot of growing pains, but I wouldn't trade it, because it was very tough, but I loved my teammates and loved my experience at Georgia. So
go Dogs.
I wouldn't change it. Yeah, go Dogs.
I'm awesome, because I feel like you're like that person, athlete that they can always count on, right? That like the coach knows, like, all right, Kathleen's gonna be the person that I know is gonna give 110 regardless. Is that true, you think?
For sure. And then too, a little bit tenacious as well. And so that work sometimes didn't work as well other times with my teammates, and wanting to have that same level of rigor and work ethic. Sometimes I would become across as, like, my sister would say the same thing, come across as Kathleen the meanie. And so I would be like very like, and just would get a little bit too laser focused sometimes. Sometimes I would butt heads a lot with my teammates, but at the same time, like, they knew that they could count on me. I would but also be the first person to pick somebody up or to help them or to drop everything and go where I was needed. So there's like two sides of it. Like, I would be very rigorous at the same time. I really, really care about my teammates and wanted to help them on and off the court.
I love that. So, so at what point did it become like, maybe I can go pro?
I thought about it for a little bit, because seeing other women that had gone pro, but at the same time, it was hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was really burnt out after my 4 years at Georgia. It was a grind, and then we had a coaching change my junior year that made me almost want to be like, I'm done. I'm like, this is too much. I might just go back to Wilmington and go to UNCW and just be a student, because I'm not sure that all of this pressure and the stress is worth it. But thankfully, I had two female coaches that came in, and both had played pro and really encouraged me. And the second thing that happened was the assistant athletic director, Carla Williams, who is now the AD at University of Virginia, helped me figure out how I could get a study abroad paid for, and got to experience that in May, going into my senior year. And so I was able to go on a May semester to Croatia. And I think being able to go to Europe and then having two coaches that had played professionally, I think were the two things I needed to help me see, okay, yeah, maybe I do want to do this. But even then, I was still very objective minded, thinking, okay, but I still want to go to PA school. I need to go to grad school. I don't have like not unlimited amount of time I can do this. And then same thing, I also want to take a break. Like, I wanted to have like experience one football season not being an athlete, and so I added a minor and I stayed in one extra semester, so I was able to be there for the fall and see us play. Like, it was a really cool experience to go with a teammate that fall and watch Georgia play in the SEC championship, and it was half of my decision. So what actually ended up happening is that I did a tryout in that January, the Bring It tour tryout. And so I had a ticket, like, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do this tryout for a few weeks. So I'll have two suitcases. Either I make a team and I'll stay, either I'll just continue to travel and enjoy Europe and come back and go to grad school, or I realized that this is not for me, and I just come back to Athens and work and to get ready for that next chapter. We flew into Milan. Then that same day we had like a practice, and then I was able to next morning get into a Fiat with like an Italian coach and drive down to close to Rome. And that's when I signed my first contract. And so I was like, okay, so that all the fears and doubts, like, can I do this? Am I good enough? Will this work out? What should I do next? We're like, okay, yeah, this is it. I can do this. And so I'm going to see what happens. So yeah, that's how I got my first pro contract.
You're just driven.
Yeah.
So when you have this drive, right? You know, like you said earlier, there's always that voice of doubt, right? You know, we all have it. You know, sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it just grows, right? When that voice come, how did you what was like your tools or mental health that you kind of helped, keep you kind of stable and check whatever?
I think especially I think it's super important. Like they say, like, what you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I've been very fortunate that people either on my team or around me that were really encouraging and I was able to confide in or go to when I was struggling. And just having people that are also high achievers too. And they wanted the best of whatever their goals were. So they're always working for something, and also being around highly motivated people, whether that was people in my degree, all exercise science majors, all knew that they wanted to be PTs or PAs or teachers, but very, very motivated. So we all kept each other accountable and push each other, whether it was my strength coaches and the student assistants that were there with us every day. Or our academic advisors at Georgia. And then having to kind of create that circle again when I was pro. And so Whether that was at one point I was thinking about doing wine stuff. So I was looking at, okay, what do who works in the wine industry? What do they do? And trying to find people like that, coming across other mentors that way of, and then strength coaches as well, mental coaches. So I think too, like not just relying on myself, but creating an environment that can help me and push me and be like a safety net too as well.
That's awesome. I think there's a lot of value there because sometimes we kind of get as like high achievers that we can just do it all ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have that self awareness of like I need a squad. I need people around me that can help me and kind of have my back too. So that's cool.
No, it takes time. I think it's like the constant struggle between your ego and like what you want, like the ego, the doubt, the push and the drive, and like kind of listen to your inner voice to guide you a little bit. It's not easy. It takes a lot of practice. I'm something too even now that I'm having to work on as I'm making different changes and decisions as well.
So when you started, you became a pro, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you could have like stopped, and look back on your journey to like, the 5-year-old who wanted to, be, the big time athlete, what would you say to her like about the journey coming up?
I probably would have told her that you won't believe the places you'll go and the people that you'll meet. And it's gonna be very, very hard, but very, very rewarding. And don't wish any of it away. The good, the bad, the ugly. Don't wish any of it away. Just accept it and keep moving forward. Because I think sometimes when it was getting hard, I was resenting how hard it was, or resenting that things didn't go how I wanted them to, instead of being more accepting and just trying to learn the lessons from it, rather than staying in the space where I was a little bit angsty. And then to realizing that the good moments go by so fast, and I like just to really be present, to soak them up, and to enjoy it, because it really does go by a lot faster than you think. And it was cliche to say, but it's true.
What was the hardest moment you faced as a pro?
I think it was during my third season, and first I was not in my very, very best physical shape, and so I came into preseason a little bit behind. And then on top of that, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, okay, you have to do this and this during the season. You have to be this kind of player, even though a lot of it was outside of my control, like these objectives and things I wanted to achieve. And so all that pressure and stress I put on myself, for the first time in my career, I got a major injury and couldn't practice. And that was like the first time I think ever that I hadn't been able to do something physically for 6 or 8 weeks. I had missed maybe at Georgia. I never missed a practice except for maybe a handful of times because of stomach flu. Even when I rolled my ankle, I was like, hey, pick them up. We're not going to keep going. And so I went from always playing, and even I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. So summers were busy and never took time off, to go from that to being, okay, you tore your ab. You can't really do anything because even like laughing or coughing hurts. So you really have to take time off. And I think that was just, it was tough because I had put so much of my identity into being Kathleen, the volleyball player, the pro athlete, the leader of the team, the setter, to being like, now you're the bench player. You're not even on the bench, because in France, if you're injured, you have to stay in the stands. You can't be on the bench if you're medically taking a timeout. So that was like a lot. And I went to a deep depression because just at that point too, I hadn't built that structure around myself yet of mentors and people, and so it really forced me to do that, to reach out again to people that I lost touch with, and then ask a lot of questions personally about, okay, what do you want out of this? What do you want to do moving forward? How are you going to handle this differently? But that took time, and it didn't really fully come into fruition until that season ended, and I was able to go into therapy and to really dissect what happened, and then prepare myself for that next season. Then thankfully I got picked up the next season too, because it's not always guaranteed when you get an injury like that. I got injured twice because I tried to come back too quickly and tore it again. So like another 3 weeks. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. but during that period, I think my ego was doing a lot of the talking and a lot of the, I don't know, had a lot of influence. And so having to be humble again was a nice healthy dose of being humble was really needed. And then having that step back, and then too, I was able to, when I see teammates that were injured, I view them differently than before. So that was also a really nice gift, to be able to be that person to help teammates that were injured, kind of then knew what that felt like to be out.
I'm glad I'm glad you kind of mentioned the athlete identity, right? Because like for me, I think like my story in a little bit, I have the ACL tear, and I was like that in the same way. High school, like I was Jacolby the athlete. That's how people saw me. That's how I perceived myself. So when I lost that piece of me, I had no idea who I was, what I like to do, who do I hang out with when I can't be the athlete. So for you, we kind of had to rebuild who Kathleen Gates was. Who were you?
I think I had to go back to what I enjoyed about the sport, what I enjoyed about the playing abroad experience, and that was being curious, getting to know people, and working towards common goals, and building community, and being a positive force of change or a positive influence. Whether it was for the kids I was coaching at my clubs, or back at home, or just in general being that friendly, open person, building community, and then enjoying opportunities I have to travel and to have new experiences, rather than focusing on, oh yeah, I want to be this person, be the best, and get all these accolades, when in fact, like, that was, I don't know, that's never been like, that was never I didn't go into this, I joined the team in Greenville. I didn't say, okay, I want to be the best setter in the US. No, I just said, no, I just want to be better. I just want to be in a good environment, enjoy this sport, grow more, and see how far I can go. So I think that was like just changing my focus and letting the ego push it aside again.
So back to you right now. Who is Kathleen Gates? Outside of volleyball, who is she?
Super curious and social, able to drop of a hat, jump on a train or on a plane to go on an adventure, but also someone very loyal and cares a lot about the people that are in her life, and just enjoys good conversations and good food and good wine.
What kind of wine?
Right now, I think it's like mostly wine from the Loire Valley, because I visited there back in February with my parents. It's a little bit lighter. A lot of for me, red and white wine kind of the same. Depends on what goes with it. So those type of wines, yeah.
And now you're based in not Paris, but is it a little outside?
And it's 3 hours south in a town called, or 3.5 hours south by train. It's called Clermont-Ferrand, and it's 2 hours west of Lyon. It's really like right in the middle of France.
Bonjour.
Yeah, exactly.
When we were lying, this whatever you said some words in French, and I was like, crap. All right, Duolingo, Google Translate. How do I say something back so I sound clever? So for you, how did you kind of learn to, I guess, or how did you kind of get acclimated to different cultures, that you were experiencing overseas, coming from, Hendersonville, right? To now, being in Croatia, being in Paris, being in France. How do you kind of get that adjustment in?
I think I was lucky that I had friends growing up from a few different, like their different backgrounds, and then it continued into college, and then just going back to being open and curious, and just listening a lot more than I was speaking, and observing a lot more than just jumping in. Not gonna lie, not knowing how to learn a language and then being kind of forced to is still not fun. Like I still struggle a little bit with the completely being able to express fully what I'm thinking in French, but then realizing that's worth the effort, because then again, it opens you up to more connection and understanding the culture, and realizing that such a cool opportunity we have to live over here and to play and to also interact with these people that otherwise there's no other reason I would be speaking French. If I was going to just stay that normal path, and decide after university to go ahead and just go become a PA, go right to work, and maybe travel every once in a while, the 2 weeks we have off, to go travel somewhere. But Yeah, completely different. I think it opens you up to a whole new world and a whole new experience and makes you a lot more autonomous as well.
Definitely, definitely. So year three, you had the injury. You kind of had to bounce back, kind of
Mm-mm.
work your way back. So year four and year five, if
Mm-hmm.
you had to give like a theme for those 2 years, what would you say?
It was just like a comeback because that was like kind of the thing too. Like the season I personally wasn't well. My teammates were incredible. We had an incredible season. We helped move the team. I was playing second division in France. We have won nearly almost all our matches. We moved the team up to the first division. We made it to the finals of the Coupe de France, which is a tournament, and we like lost by 2 points in the fifth set. And I just remember thinking, sitting in that locker room in Paris where we played the match, just thinking, I hate this feeling. I hate this feeling of like doing all this and getting so close and not doing this. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't care where I am or how I do it. Next year I want to win this thing. And at that point, I knew I wasn't come back to that club. I didn't really know if I could get picked up again, but I had this feeling like I'm gonna come back and win this thing. So then the next year, played for Chamelier, and it was a very similar season. I think maybe the records might have been almost identical. So we won again the championship, helped move the team up to the first division, and then we won the Coupe de France. And what was cool about that year was that we were able to play that match in Clermont in front of a home crowd, and we were even scrappier because we only had like maybe 8, 9 players the whole season. So we had a few injuries, and so it was really just a huge team effort to be able to, first of all, make it a whole season on 8 players, and then second to win that Coupe de France in front of the home team and having all that pressure, and to be able to do it, and also to the best. I think the best feeling was knowing that it was a really tight. We lost the first set and won the next two, and then in the fourth we started finally getting a big break and like looking around at my teammates and just smiling because we finally knew, okay, all that hard work, all that sacrifice is going to pay off. And at that point too, we knew we were going to win the championship. So just a really cool season. So they get come back, and then also too, I think going to that next season, just assuming my role as the setter and starting and being a leader again, because I think you lose a little bit, at least I did, lost a little bit of confidence after being injured, and also lost a little bit of confidence being overseas and not being able to express myself as I normally would in English, and trying to like kind of find, okay, what is my place over here? And then being, okay, know what, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do, and I know I'm going to be over here, so let's go.
The whole conversation, you gotta mention being a leader a lot, right? And
Mm-mm.
being a setter and being a leader, and kind of rallying your teammates. So say there is a kid back here in the States, right? That's a
Mm-mm.
setter, that's say a younger you, right?
Mm-mm.
What advice would you give that kid on how to develop their leadership skills?
Something that I wish I would have learned a lot earlier and been a lot kinder with my teammates, because sometimes I would come across really brash and a little bit harsh. And thinking about, you have to separate the person from their actions. There's a person that's on the court, there's a person off the court, and this personality can be completely different. So take time really to invest in the person off the court, get to know them, to know what makes them tick, and figure out how you can bring out the best in them rather than just getting frustrated with the results and the performance. Because once you do that, you get, because we won't, and coaches always tell us that you won't really care in like 20 years about you won't remember the scores or what happened, but you'll remember like you'll have those relationships with your teammates, and that is the most important thing. Is it's a team sport, it's relationships, and that's more important than the wins and losses.
Okay. So if Susan misses the kill, you don't
Mm-hmm.
you don't yell at her.
No, you say what's up. You say, how can I? You can just say, okay, like what can I do to help? Like what do you need? Or then say, or if like for instance, sometimes teammates, if they have to make a couple mistakes, they either get into their heads or less aggressive, and you try to help them by saying, hey, like think about doing this, or if you see an opening, or like in this situation, their defense is always here, so maybe if you try this could work, and help them reshift their focus on what to do rather than thinking about past mistakes, which I think is it's difficult because volleyball is a game of mistakes. And so kind of like tennis too. So someone has to either hit the ball out or miss a defense, and that's how the points scored. So trying to help your teammates refocus for that next play.
An interesting perspective. I kind of thought about it that way. Volleyball is a game of like a mistakes. I remember watching games, and that's true. Like if you miss the set, if you you block it out of bounds, so that's interesting. That's so for you, your year 5, everything like that. When did it become a point where you thought, all right, it's time to hang up the jersey?
After my 5th season, because I played 7 in total. And so I knew I wanted to stay in France. So my focus started shifting towards, okay, how I'm going to create a life for myself outside of, from my career's over. And also too, after turning 26, I was like, well, I'm not on my parents' insurance anymore. I need to figure out a way to stay full time in Europe and in France. So I actually became a tour guide in Paris. And so I did bike tours and walking tours with a company called Fat Tire. And so that was really, really fun. I was with about 40 of us were guides because it's back people could travel more freely. And so it was really fun. And it's gave me a new perspective on like life outside of sports, and then to the quality of people I was with in that company was extremely high. Like everyone was very hardworking, very driven, but also could have a good time and good conversation. And what was cool is that none of us had the same profile. Like I was the only professional athlete. A lot of people were musicians and teachers. And so I think seeing that life outside of it, and then doing it a second summer, I knew kind of going into that second summer that in 2019 that maybe this would be my last season playing. And then I would also make things possible that I could ask for a 10-year work visa. And so knowing that I loved tours and loved people, I started applying to jobs and had things starting to line up for after volleyball. But then 2020 happened and people weren't traveling anymore. And so those jobs kind of fell through. And then I had just turned in my documents to ask for the work visa. And that got lost in the mix of the chaos of COVID. So then was really unsure and knew that looking at that, I was like, okay, I had the option, like from that March until July, I had the option of like, okay, do you want to play again or do you want to work? And I was like, I don't think I want to play in these conditions. So I have a huge respect for athletes, especially the ones that played these past 2 seasons, because it was really tough being that isolated, having to be really flexible and change, lots of changes. And I knew that at that point, my mind was already, unless you really, really love the sport, it would have been very difficult for me and like really just wanted to be in it. It would have been not the best environment for me to be in. So I already knew that. And so I was already thinking about other things. I was like, okay, yeah, this confirms that I should need to go ahead and hang things up.
So you're hanging things up. You're the tour guide. You now you got the visa. So now if you look at where are you now in the journey?
I feel like I'm still in transition of like figuring out exactly what I know kind of my big goals, but I think is always difficult is knowing like what's the next best step to get there, trying to weigh all the options. And so for me, it's working with athletes abroad and helping athletes before, during, after their careers as professional volleyball players. And then besides as well, finding, I think, another platform and also helping to grow women's sports, whether I stay in volleyball or whether I change to a different sport. But I think just encouraging girls to play. And for me, that looks like making women's sport more accessible through media and also through broadcasting. And so seeing where that could possibly take me and making that more visible. We see that already with, I think if anyone in 1999 can remember the USA women winning that cup, the World Cup, and just being able to have that moment and seeing that, it was incredible. And I think that's what women's sports needs, just more eyes and more visibility. And if people are interested, if it's on, people will watch, but it's just accessibility is difficult.
So I feel like this conversation with the linemen because I need help with that. Like there's something like we're kind of doing more volleyball stuff right now, and and I want to learn. I want to figure out how can we, magnifying this, because I'm going to the AU game this Saturday.
Mm,
Right? I'm going to watch my first pro football game, right? And I would love to
very
just
cool.
figure out, like how it works abroad, because it's just a
Mm-mm.
so amazing talent that goes abroad, and it's like we don't really see a lot in the U.S. Right? So how
Right.
how can we showcase those stories and those athletes and those journeys like yours, right? Because
Mm-mm.
that way we can inspire some girl back home to she can do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I think now it's really great is that we have the tools now, we have the platforms, we have YouTube, we have TikTok, we have Twitch. It's just now getting things organized because of different federations. For instance, a few years ago in France, they didn't re-sign the contract for to broadcast the matches, and now they're only available online through the LNB website. And it's not like sometimes there's only one perspective of the camera. There's no commentators, and that's just one league. And you can imagine that some leagues are a little bit better, but then it's blocked in other countries, or you have to go through a paywall to get through it. And then so I think there's a lot of opportunity because it's not as well structured as other sports. Or you see someone like for women's football, how a company bought the rights to diffuse all of the Champions League matches on YouTube for free for the next 3 years. So something like that would work, where someone just takes all the rights and says, okay, we'll diffuse it on a platform where everyone can watch. Because like I tried to reach out to other women in sports, and I think it's just funny that we spend more time chatting about where can we find the link to watch a match than like actually watching it sometimes. So they're trying to do like VPN it and try to get it going, or there's like a bad connection. So I think just figuring out a way to get more eyes on it and distributing it to different markets, and then to having the clubs or the athletes tell their own stories and creating their own content and in their own style and way, because I think that's also really empowering for the athletes too, to be able to share their story their way.
Yeah, we gotta talk more about this. We definitely
Okay.
definitely. Yeah. And
Mm-mm.
so for you, what you're doing, but with athlete abroad and everything you're going
Mm-mm.
forward. So you kind of now at the point where you want to give back to the game, right?
Yep.
So
I think it's given me so much. I feel like you like, and I think there's also a point too where you go through different stages, and I think there's a stage where you have to go through mourning, like a grief stage of like mourning your career, mourning that part of you, but then also getting excited again about the other opportunities that are available, but then also healing yourself first before you feel you can help other people. Because uh my obviously ending during COVID was not ideal. I would have really liked to have just finished our last two matches at home and been able to say goodbye to our fans and crowds and being able to say goodbye that way. But at the same time, we can't always have control over that. So to a place now where I'm ready again to help athletes, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think too, something that's really important to me is doing things that align with my values and doing things that are bigger than myself. And so I have to grow as a person to be able to do that too. But then find people around me that are in that same kind of mindset is really helpful. So I think that's now for me is figuring out what does that look like and what kind of projects or companies and that kind of thing would I want to move forward with.
I love it. I love it. So on our phone to sign up, there was this spot for if you had to give a title for your journey, your story.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? So that's conversation right now. So what would that be?
Oh my goodness. I know I have a hard time putting just like a one like slogan or tagline on my journey. Um Goodness gracious. I think for me it's just being um dream big and then work harder. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. You dream big, but then you work harder than your dreams. Mm-mm.
Fire. Dream big and work harder.
Mm-mm.
How has no one made that like a thing yet? That's or something. Dream big, then work harder. I might quote that on social media, but I'll give you credit for it though. I'll tag you in it.
Okay, that's so completely fine. I think there's also a side where people are like, oh, don't work too hard, don't get burnt out. But I feel like there's like a certain amount of work that's required to achieve your dreams. And then obviously, yes, there are times you need to rest and to relax and to refocus. But I think in the beginning there's a huge steep learning curve, and you have to put in the work, as there's no other way around it. And then the more you try to find shortcuts, the harder it should make it hard for yourself. You just have to put in the work. That's what in my experience it's been.
And then too, I think it comes down to like you'll regret not putting in that, like, you know, like imagine if you didn't spend that summer working on your overhand serve and on the racquetball court, right? If you would be here today.
And too, like I know that the season I got injured is because I didn't prepare myself enough that summer going into that season, and so I said that will never happen again. And so I had to push myself to make sure it didn't happen again and to get into even better shape and be ready for the season. So yeah, and I was really lucky I got a second chance to play, because that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, dream big and work harder, man. so I know you got a big game tonight to go watch your friend's last match. So two more questions for you. So what's next? I mentioned them before, but like what's like your big next step?
For me, it's going to be, I have my eyes, I don't know what and how, but with being in France and with Paris 2024 coming up, I want to be involved. I'm just going to say it here. I want to do something. I'm not sure what it would look like and what area, but I want it to be involved. And then two, second, the side project would always be just finding new ways to help athletes share their stories and get more eyes on these incredible people and what they're doing. And so I think that helps grow the sport more than I think it'll help grow the sport more than anything else. So I think it's the next big thing is really utilizing, we see it on TikTok and all the social medias, just more eyes, more people are interested.
Love it. And then the last question for you, social media, website, they think we got to find more about you and follow your journey and your story. Yeah,
I'm on Instagram at KE Gates. And that's it. I'm posting more of like travel type stuff and like where I am in France. And then also you can follow our athletes at Athletes Abroad SE and see what they're doing, updates on what's going on in the season. Right now it's playoffs. And so a lot of the either quarterfinals or semifinals. And then even tonight, there's the third match of the Swiss championships, match between Neuchâtel and Smash. And so those are our athletes are competing in them, so following them and their journeys and what they're up to as well. And also there's always a link for the matches as well, what we share. Okay. So yeah.
Kathleen, I really enjoyed the conversation. Like I look forward to talking to you more. I mean,
me too.
I feel like you kind of have like the mindset that can, just conquer anything.
Once I get past like the doubt voices, then I'm able to go by. There's definitely been some creative doubt and action because I've talked myself out of it. But when I actually get over that hump, then I'm ready to do anything.
Hey, you're gonna do some big things in this world of sports for sure. I can see it. So tell that voice to like, shh.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, awesome. Well, enjoy the game. Enjoy some good wine, and we'll definitely be in touch soon.
Yep, sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your time. I know with the time difference, it's not always easy, so really appreciate you and what you're doing for athletes.
Hey, it's worth it for sure.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can find more athlete-driven content at 9point.com. Till the next episode, you're only one opportunity away. Peace.